welcome to week 5 of Philosophy of Education. This week we're looking at schools and educational systems around the world and also comparing a Christian school education with a more public school education. So this week you're going to finish your Philosophy of Christian School Education book. Can you believe it? You've read this entire beastly book. Don't you love the fact that the font was like size 14? And that there were gigantic margins? I thought it was a good book to read. So you're going to be reading pages 385 to 477 out of this bad boy and finish it up, looking at not just educational systems around the world, but thinking about discipline in the Christian schools and where that the thought of discipline originally has to come from. And in addition to that, you're going to be reading just a little bit more from our Teaching Redemptively. Hasn't this been a creative and yet challenging style of teaching that we're reading about? Such an honor to think of being a teacher that teaches redemptively. So in this book, you're going to be reading pages 199 to 217, just a little bit in this, and then we'll finish up this book in week 6. Don't forget to do, again, your targets for understanding and your self-examination questions in the Teaching Redemptively. You do 2 questions, number 1, and then choose your second one. And in the Philosophy of Ed, you do all of the targets for understanding that are posted at the beginning of each chapter. Put those in your collateral reading log. You're going to be submitting that next week. Well, no, July 13th is when it's officially due. You can finish it anytime you want. Once you've read through the books and answered those questions, you've got that done, and you can turn it in early if you have all your reading done early. This week, you've had a chance last week to finish up your first draft of your Philosophy of Education paper. And I want to give you a little bit of time, because as you work through this paper, you need to be meeting with someone to ask yourself, or to clarify, what is it that I'm trying to say here? And that's the challenge of philosophy papers, is having to figure out, am I saying what I want to be saying in a manner that everyone understands, and is it based off of some fact, or is it just some sort of loosey-goosey emotion that I have? It needs to be based off of fact. You need to be thinking scriptural, and you can be thinking of some of the other hermeneutics and philosophical perspectives. You can bring all of those in as to why you believe these things happen discipline-wise in your classroom, why you believe these things happen when you're designing your curriculum, why you believe these things happen when you're relating to your students. And all of that together creates this philosophy of what you are and what you believe about being a teacher and in an educational system. Put that document in our document sharing tab at the top of your screen, and that will give an opportunity for everyone to be able to see your document and be able to download it. And I will send you an email as to who you've been assigned, so we'll just rotate, who will be reading your philosophy first draft. Now I say first draft, but remember, this whole week you're not going to be working on it. You're going to be reading someone else's. And I want you to put in comments, either with a comment thing on a Word document where you add comments, or print the thing off and write another Word document with all of it. And you need to be asking and helping the person who wrote this paper to dig deeper into what their beliefs are. And if you think what they're saying is, kind of loosey-goosey or kind of shallow, highlight that and be like, you need to get stronger. If this is truly what you believe, you need to say this very strongly and emphatically, not, I think maybe it could possibly work in said manner if all of the conditions are right. But just right there, this is what I believe, and this is how I'm going to run my classroom. So they need to be kind of more emphatic statements. You can only be emphatic if you know that what you're saying is true, and you've got some sources to back you up on that. Then you can say without a shadow of a doubt that this is what you believe, and this is what you're wanting to do as a future teacher. Those are some things you need to be thinking about when you are reading through your documents. Now, make sure then you need to copy the area and use a comment, insert comments, so that way they can see that. Please make sure you don't make any changes without tracking the changes, so that way when you get your original one back to you with all of the feedback, you know where the changes could be made. last thing, make sure before you go, you grade it. So that way they can see if this was what they had submitted this week. This is what grade you would give them using the rubric that I will be using the following week. So download the upper level writing rubric and fill it out, and then save that, or just highlight the different areas with the name of the person who would get the rubric. Okay, and then they can download that and kind of see, and I can see as well. Hopefully then by the time that draft 2 comes to me, that by then I'll be looking at that. I'll say, oh, look at how much changes and how much stronger your statements are, and better research is coming, and that way you won't be feeling like you're submitting a philosophy paper, which goes into your educational portfolio, and a lot of principals even read it, that it's a strong, well-prepared statement and paper, so that way you've got kind of the nuts and bolts covered in a concrete and concise way. Alright? If you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email, or if it's an emergency, send me a text if you're not hearing back from me as quickly as you need to. I hope you're all having a great week, and keep talking on the discussion boards, and we will see you next week for our final class. Blessings!